Hey, everybody. You can't escape it. Here in Craft Beer Professionals, we regularly see posts asking strategies to best create meaningful brewery and craft beer events. Why aren't people coming to my beer fest? Best activity for a Tuesday night in the tap room? Best practices for partnering with nonprofits and other community organizations? As I regularly say it, it's all about creating experiences. Today, I'm joined by Eric and Jeremiah from Grand Rapids to discuss how to create meaningful interactions and authentic experiences. And now, let's meet them. Eric, you're to my right. You get to go first. Tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Hi, my name is Eric Fouch. I'm the owner here at Thornapple Brewing Company. I keep my hands into the wet works and some liquid production. I do the distillations, make all the ciders and the meads, and fill out all the boring paperwork.
So, Eric, I got a quick follow-up for you. Like, how many different beverages do you make at Thornapple?
Across the beers, we probably have 16 or so beers on tap. Currently, it's cider week in Grand Rapids, so I've got 15 ciders on tap. We normally have 5 or 6 ciders on tap, and then we have a full line of spirits, vodka, gin, rum, spiced rum, whiskey, bourbon, reposado, agave. So we try to have something for everybody.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. That could be a whole nother hour we spend diving into that. But thanks for being here. Jeremiah, I'd love to learn more about you.
Hey, Andrew. So my name is Jeremiah Zimmerman. I am the president of the Beer City Brewers Guild. I also work with Mr. Eric Fouch there as the head brewer at Thornapple Brewing Company. Make all the beer, help with the distillations and whatever Eric needs help with. And also on top of that, I run a business called Beer City Tap Handles, where we make custom tap handles at a affordable range for breweries breaking out into distribution. And I'm an aspiring farmer on top of all of that.
It sounds like both of you two, like many brewery owners, are super busy. So thanks for making the time today. Now, Jeremiah, I want to talk about, how we actually ended up here today. There was a post in CBP maybe a couple months ago. Can you tell us about the post that you saw and how it made you feel?
Yeah. So there's some discussion kind of revolving around large scale events or beer festivals and in particular. And, I definitely saw both sides of it, where there are some people who see the efficacy of it still, and there are some who just kind of wondered if it really has a place in today's world or resonates with today's drinker. And for me, it was kind of, it wasn't really giving the full scope or the full picture, because we certainly need these events. We certainly like these events, but there's also a whole landscape of how these events are done, the types of entities or organizations that run them. I was seeing comments like one of my favorites was, beer festivals are like fat tire beer. It's what your dad drank or what's what your dad did, sort of a thing, sort of making it seem as though it was a thing of the past and for an older generation. And, I've been in the industry for almost 14 years now, professionally, and I don't see it going anywhere. Beer is alive and well in the United States, and it's ingrained into our culture. And I definitely think that these events have a place. It's just that now more than ever, our events need to be purposeful. We need to, sort of diversify them. And so I just wanted to find a way that I could make more education, or at least give my insights into how I feel about this, especially as this is something that's near and dear to me as the Beer City Brewers Guild. We have a big event during Art Prize, which is another huge festival pertaining to art in Grand Rapids every year. And we definitely have been looking to continue to raise that event up, make it bigger, make it better, make it cast a wider net to bring more people in.
And like you said, Jeremiah, it's not just about the beer anymore. There's so many other factors that could contribute to someone choosing to go to your event. And, in the list of top beer fests that are coming out these days, the ones that are topping that list are the ones that have the most purpose behind them and the ways that find unique ways to connect with everybody potentially and actually attending. So now let's go back into history books. Jeremiah, I bet you know this one. When was the first ever beer fest held and where did it take place?
Yeah, so as far as I can find, it's the thing that kicked off Oktoberfest and how we know it today, and that was in 1810 in Munich, Germany. Don't ask me to pronounce the Duke or the Prince and his wife who were getting married's name. I probably would butcher that. But that's sort of the event that sort of kicked it all off. They had a wedding and they wanted to gather people, and they were also big fans of their local brewery, and brought the brewery out and hosted everyone. And they had a very diverse event, which is kind of my point with all of this, is that we need to get sort of back to that. I mean, they had horse riding and all sorts of crazy stuff. So.
No, Eric, what do you love about just events, beer fests, more unique events that are about more than just the beverage?
Yeah, beer fest, for one thing, it's a great exposure for a brewery to expose themselves to new clientele and whatnot. The first few Michigan Brewers Guild festivals that we went to, we were always met with, "We've never heard of you. Where are you at? We're going to check you out." And then after a couple of years, we were getting a lot of return people saying, "Oh yeah, I saw you here at the festival last year, and we checked out your brewery and thought it was awesome." And just the interaction with the people, the craft beer aficionados, one-on-one. Also the camaraderie with other breweries, brewers, owners, and workers. It's a real collaborative event, or collaborative atmosphere, especially here in Grand Rapids. All the breweries get along really well. We don't look at each other as competition. We view it as a rising tide that raises all boats. So it's just a great networking opportunity, and also commercial exposure.
You know, I know many people watching and listening in the future are probably pretty familiar with Grand Rapids, but can you all just give us kind of a quick rundown of what's going on in the world of Grand Rapids, you know, let's just say beverage right now in 2024?
Yeah, the industry continues to grow. We're getting more and more participation between the breweries. A lot of collaboration brews going on. Grand Rapids has retained Beer City USA, that moniker, for several years now. Started out as an online poll a good 10, 15 years ago. Grand Rapids retired with the title when that poll closed down. But since then, USA Today, Newsweek, and lots of other news organizations have done nationwide polls and still identify Grand Rapids as Beer City USA.
Cool.
Yeah,
So,
and I think just oh, sorry. I was just going to say, to add into that, you know, like our guild, you know, Fauch kind of touched on that, but it really helps every business to be able to get together to talk about, especially right now in 2024, as we're seeing some stagnation and some different things that are concerning. It's good to have everyone to be able to meet and give perspective to find an answer to the problems that we're facing. And we all tend to benefit from it. And we take the resources of the big guy, the founders in our town, you know, and down to, you know, we have 40 breweries in the greater Grand Rapids area plus. And, you know, just taking those resources and spreading it out to a point where everybody wins. We create a destination place. And it's a great thing all around.
So now let's turn the conversation to the topic of the day. We're going to talk a little bit about beer fest. I don't know if beer fest is even the right word to use anymore, because it's about more than just the beer, but we're going to use that for the next little bit. So things get a little weird in Michigan. Like, what does the special license for off-premise events in Michigan involving alcohol restrict?
You want to start with that one, Eric?
Go ahead and take that one.
Okay. Yeah, so typically, I don't know how it works in other states, but in Michigan, it depends on who's pulling the permit. That's a big part of it. So, for instance, the Beer City Brewers Guild has access, or the Greater Michigan Brewers Guild has access to a special permit that allows us to pour off-site. It allows brew pubs to be there, which is typically something that, through the trade of the three-tier system, they're not allowed to typically pour off-premise or sell beer outside of their tap rooms. It's a great way for them to actually get some exposure and some marketing and have some product out into the hands of the people that might not normally find them. But then there are also distributor-run events where a wholesaler or another entity can pull a license. And say for those, there are some restrictions revolving around who is able to pour the product. Typically, it comes with a volunteer pour and things like that. So there's quite a lot to it, but those are some of the bigger challenges or rules and regulations associated with those. Am I missing anything, Eric, that you can think of?
No, that about covers it. Yeah, the main difference between a guild event and a distributor-ran event is who pours the beer. And then I think that affects the customer or the consumer's experience as well, because when they go to a booth that's at a distributor ran event, the pourers typically don't know anything about the product they're pouring. And a lot of times they don't know much about beer, so they can't answer questions. And that really degrades the consumer interaction and the quality of the interaction. When it's a guild event, you supply your own pourers, and typically they're restaurant or brewery employees, and they know a lot more about the beer. And when someone asks a particularly geeky question, they get a satisfactory answer from a guild event as opposed to an ally or a distributor event.
What does the split between these two different kinds of beer fests in Michigan and your area look like? I mean, are most of them guild events? Are most of the fest, distributor events? What's that kind of play out as?
I'd say there's probably more distributor events because they're a lot smaller events. Like we just participated at Taps and Tots at LMCU Ballpark here in Grand Rapids, and that's a distributor event. And they have a lot of like smaller events that are food themed sometimes. The Michigan Brewers Guild are the main guild events in Michigan, and they have I think it's down to 4 now. There's the Winter Beer Fest in Grand Rapids, the Summer Beer Fest in Ann Arbor, there's the Fall Beer Fest up in the UP in Marquette, and then the Detroit Fall Beer Fest in October. So those are the 4 main Michigan Brewers Guild events. There are some other guild events like the Lakeshore Brewers Guild. They have Burning Foot at the end of August, and that's in Muskegon. I think that's the only event that guild puts on. Then there's also the Michigan Cider Association, which puts on 1 or 2 cider fests in the state as well. In fact, this Saturday, the 18th, is going to be the Michigan Cider Fest at Rosa Parks Circle in Grand Rapids.
Do you two see that the audience is different when you compare guild events, guild fests versus distributor fests?
Not as much. Honestly, I really do. It's a matter of accessibility, I think. The wholesalers are able to subsidize costs of their distributorship attending these events and things like that. So it makes the access for them a little bit easier than, say, a self-distributed brewery or someone who hasn't yet gone into distribution or signed with a distributor. So there's some barrier to entry for some of the events. We have one in Grand Rapids that's quite challenging for people to be a part of. Eric didn't mention, he should have, but we also have our Beer City Brewers Guild festival in the fall too. I keep plugging that all day. I do think that the experience and what they gain from it and what the interaction is quite different. I think we get a lot of the same people attending them. I would say that probably the Beer City Guild and the Michigan Brewers Guild does attract some more hardcore fans of craft beer, or people who are going there and they're looking forward to it. They've got the tickets in their cart ready to purchase them, sort of a thing. And even we try to do good at those events by having the first hour be opened up specifically to enthusiast members, so they can come around, ask the questions they want, have shorter lines, and really get that experience. So it does still exist, and those are my favorite hours to pour beer too, because the interaction is so genuine. And I really do think that obviously pre-COVID and the whole start of the wave of the craft beer movement, especially here in Michigan, kind of came in the early 2010s, and people were looking for that experience when they went out to a bar to learn something, a value add for their date night or whatever it was. And then obviously after COVID, it took a while for people to sort of start coming back out, getting out to events and sort of engaging in that way. But we're now getting back there, and I think people genuinely do desire to have that experience. And so that's really the overarching point, is that there is a big difference in the way you get that. And so it's easy to look at the majority of beer festivals being of a distributorship versus a guild or the producers themselves, and what the takeaway is, what the overall experience and quality of it is at the end of the day.
I want to focus on one thing that you said. You mentioned enthusiasts get to come an hour early. Talk to us about the membership that your guild offers. I believe it's on the state level, but correct me if it's also on the local level that has enthusiast members. I know not all state guilds offer that.
Yeah, so it definitely in the Michigan Brewers Guild. We have it in our bylaws for the Beer City Brewers Guild, but we just have not really done it. The one big difference there specifically, it's just a small point, but specifically to our event, is that we are one of the only beer festival events that doesn't have a ticketed entrance fee. You can wander in, you have to get carded and things like that to be able to buy sample tickets, and so we're cooperating with the MLCC and all that. But we open it up to everyone, and so obviously that means we have to sell more drink tickets to succeed. But as far as the state guild goes, they open it up an hour ahead to people who subscribe or pay a membership fee to the Michigan Brewers Guild. And then they're given an hour early entrance into the event to hit all their favorite breweries and cross off their meticulous list of all the beers they're looking to try.
No, thanks for sharing all that. So from the brewery perspective, I'd love to hear the Thornapple approach, but also your advice for other brewers when they're looking to select if they should participate in a beer fest. What's the criteria they should have on their list that they should be looking for to get out of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there are several sort of things that goes through a brewery owner or brewer's head when it comes to sending beer out for an event. One of it is, how soon am I going to get my dang kegs back? And what kind of shape are they going to be in? That's the one that always jumps into my head first anyway. But, there's other things, what's sort of I cringe at the ROI term. What's the ROI? Eric and I laugh about that all the time. Anyway, but it is kind of true, right? Like you, especially in today's world, you need to be purposeful about the way you move and see what really the return is. There could be an event that's just kind of got a rap for being a place that people just kind of go and see how fast they can get drunk and things like that. And you have to really decide, is that a good look for your business at the end of the day to be involved with that? And from that to, am I going to be able to sell enough product to at least cover the table fee or whatever other fees may be associated? Obviously, it also comes with having liability insurance that you can bring to that event. So there is a number of considerations that you have to make to see if it's something that is good. Exposure is one of them. Fouch had mentioned Burning Foot by the Lakeshore Brewers Guild. That's a really awesome event. It's right on the beach in Lake Michigan in Muskegon there. They usually have really cool bands come and play. Like last year, it was one of the Marleys, and before that was like Eve 6 and the Plain White Tees and things like that, right up my alley and my generation. And so, not huge name acts, and maybe they're not super, relevant today, but they're finding really great ways of taking the focus solely off of beer and putting it onto other things that will get more exposure for your brand, because other people might not necessarily be there for Thornapple Brewing Company, but they're there to see Eve 6 rock the house, and they might, happen to do it with Thornapple beer in their hand.
I have vivid memories of drinking a Fat Tire in my early 20s while listening to Eve 6.
There you go.
Just kidding on that one, but nostalgia is a factor. But diving into it, what are some of the reasons, both of your opinions, for the decrease in the festival's attendance, post-pandemic?
I think Jeremiah touched on a little bit, that's your dad went to festivals. Well, I'm a dad. Yeah, I go to festivals, but I think, economics are kind of playing into it a little bit. Everyone's trying to decide where to spend their money to get their biggest bang for their buck. The younger generation, we need to, and I think Jeremiah alluded to it as well, make this, it's more than just a beer festival. You're not just going there to walk around and drink beer. There's got to be an entertainment segment to it. There's got to be some other attractions for it in order to draw some of the younger drinkers in. But it's just kind of a shift in the demographic of alcoholic consumption. Some of the younger people are shying away from beer and still moving towards seltzers, mixed drinks, that kind of stuff.
NA.
What do you think, Jay-Z?
I mean, NA is a big one, obviously, too. But, he hit the nail on the head. And it's not even so much as just piggybacking other things to cast a wider net to bring people in. It's also about value add, because just as Eric said, with how people are watching their wallets and what they're willing to spend and the experiences they're willing to put money out for, you have to be prepared to really be able to give a value add on that back end for not only the breweries to participate in your event, but for the consumer to have a reason to be there and to promote it as well.
And both of you touched on the changing habits of younger drinkers. Looking specifically at the 21 to 30-year-old segment right there. I mean, they're drinking less beer, like you said, Eric. How can we better appeal to them?
Well, like Jay-Z said, there's a big move towards NA. I don't get it. It's not my generation. But, just offering a wider variety of products, and the trends swing. It was swinging towards NA, and it's still kind of trending that way. It swung towards seltzers, and that's kind of swinging back a little bit. For a while there, it was session beers, sessionable IPAs. Now they're actually swinging back for the beer drinkers who are still drinking beer. It's swinging back towards higher gravity and darker beers. So it's just a series of trends. And I guess you kind of have to have your pulse on what's going on. You have your finger on the pulse of what's going on to recognize a trend and get onto that trend sooner than later. And, see what the younger crowd, what the newer drinkers coming in are interested in, and try to make sure that that's something that you're offering at your facility, your tap room.
Yeah, and to expand on that from my side is, it just reminds me of, I went to a seminar not long ago, and there was a panel of some of the top heads of beer in Michigan and in the Midwest. And someone had asked Dave Engbers of Founders Brewing Company, do you think that anyone in today's age could have the success that Founders has, or the rise and the meteoric sort of, rise that they had? And his answer was no. And where I think that I understand what he was saying with that, immediately in my head, what I thought was, there's actually other situations where really what it comes down to now is capturing lightning in a bottle, like definitely having your finger on the pulse of the trends. But also I sometimes take issue with that as well, because you have a market that's constantly fluctuating, constantly changing their preferences, then really how can you really base your business too heavily on that, right? The thing that came to mind when I heard that that question and the answer is that you look at like Athletic Brewing Company, right? They have absolutely exploded in the NA world, and they were not nearly as big as they are 5 years ago. And I think that that's just a product of what is actually, taking precedence now. I actually wrote out an answer for this question that does it more justice. I'm just going to read sort of part of it. But post-COVID, 21 to 30-year-old drinkers have shown noticeable shift in their preferences. Many have demonstrated a growing interest in healthier lifestyle choices, leading to an increase in the consumption of low alcohol or non-alcoholic beverages. Additionally, there's been a trend in supporting local businesses and craft breweries, but with a focus on unique and artisanal drinks. This age group has also shown that a preference for convenience, opting for ready-to-drink cocktails, subscription services, curated alcohol experiences, and overall, there's been a shift towards quality over quantity, the desire for more diverse and experimental drinking options among that range of drinkers. The changes in preferences among them post-COVID can be attributed to a bunch of different factors. The pandemic has heightened awareness of health and wellness, prompting individuals to reconsider their drinking habits and seek alternatives to align with healthier lifestyle. Rise of craft and local businesses can be linked to desire to support small businesses and explore unique, locally produced beverages. So it's really just about making a shift towards more mindfulness and a varied drinker and their choices among this age group.
Now let's dive in. $1 million question. We've talked about all the challenges we're facing, but how can you use all this knowledge to make strategies to make beer events more appealing and diverse again?
Well, I'll start with this one. The biggest thing for me that I want to say first, I wanted to maybe say it last, but I think it's important to sort of say it first because it's that important, is that while I say it's good to cast a wide net, I still believe that having the core of these events be about beer is important. We're not trying to just have a feature in our event and have that be the highlight. And yeah, by the way, we also have beer. But we want to make beer the component. And the way that we do it in the Beer City Brewers Guild is we have a competition, a spirited competition that's different than anything that anybody else really does. There might be some people doing it now, but I know we're the first to have done it. and it's something that kind of lives on with us within us, and that's we do the annual Pro-Am competition. So we have since we're such a big beer city, we also have a great number of homebrew clubs by us. So probably like, I would say 5 or 6 major clubs, or well, maybe 4 or 5 major clubs, but there's definitely over 5 clubs. But all the brewers from these clubs compete in 3 separate homebrew competitions throughout the year, and then they submit all of those scores, and they take an average of all of them, and the top 30 of them go into a raffle that we're actually hosting this Sunday at Archival Brewing as the Beer City Brewers Guild, where the home brewer will come up and draw a name out of the hat that's a professional brewer. They get paired up, and then they do a collaborative beer, and that beer is featured at our event. So it gives people from now until, well, I guess until the time the beer is released, but it gives the general public the ability to go around to each of these tap rooms, which is in the spirit of how Beer City first started. When we first started, we did challenges across the city where everybody would brew the same style of beer, and you could go around to each of the Grand Rapids breweries and try their pumpkin beer. The Grand Pumpkin was a big thing that we did. And everybody, go around and try those. And then at the end, we have an event or a festival that brings it all back in. That helps and the way of marketing. It helps in the way of experience and connecting the consumer to the products. It also brings in the home brewers, who are some of our biggest champions, not to mention that spirit of collaboration and a brewery being able to do something they don't normally do, or throwing something at the wall to see a stick has resulted in some of the greatest things that have ever entered the beer world, right? Like Michigan has M43, the hazy IPA is a big example of that came out of the collaboration between a home brewer and a brewer who, decided to take a chance on it. And so I really think that for us, that is the core component of it. Doing the Pro-Am, we have content during the event where we announce the winners. We're implementing a People's Choice this year. It's going to be involved with our Brewsader app that's done by Experience Grand Rapids, where you can check into each brewery and get special discounts and things like that. But we're looking to hopefully set that up to where people can vote right from their phones before the event, and then on day of, they can vote in person. And it just, it's friendly competition. Eric said earlier, we don't look at each other as competitors, but it's definitely a stone sharpens stone, or iron sharpens iron sort of a thing. To where it's good for us all to work with the home brewers who are our biggest champions out there. They love us more than anything. They're out there talking about their favorite brewery and telling anybody who will listen, sometimes probably even a little more geeky than folks like me. But those are the types of things that are really important. We're also implementing a small bazaar this year. We're partnering with a few local creators and artists and things like that. It's obviously during Art Prize, which already draws a ton of people into Grand Rapids. We're giving them another form of art and beer, and doing many other collaborations in that way. We'll have a couple disc golf baskets set up and yard games, and we'll have a caricature artist on site drawing people's faces with a cool order of the event with the Beer City Brewers Guild logo on it. So we have a bunch of food trucks coming in, putting some focus on food, a larger stage, just sort of doing all of those things to make, we're taking this concrete lot and we're turning it for a moment in time into an experience. And so we want to make sure that everywhere you look, that experience is happening, and it's something that a lot of people can embrace and enjoy.
I really like that. So you're adding more than beer, of course. But how are you putting this out there in the messaging and marketing that you're doing to attract people to come to the event?
This year over other years is actually really important, and I put a huge focus on that. Last year I was busy. It was my first year as president of the organization. I was busy taking care of other elements of the organization. This year I've made a very proactive focus toward partnering and working with the connections that I already have in the beer industry, who are champions in media, specifically like a couple people from the Michigan Brewers Guild that I'm close with have given me their direct contacts for many of the news media outlets and different people who cover stories, working with people who do podcasts related to beer, just finding any sort of avenue we can, trying to piggyback on some of the art prize stuff, which already has a ton of funding and a lot of stuff out there. We also partner closely with Experience Grand Rapids, who is a huge entity for marketing in Grand Rapids, responsible for a ton of thriving businesses. They do an amazing job at promoting, and it doesn't hurt that from the inception of the Beer City Brewers Guild, Kate Lieto, who is a higher up in Experience Grand Rapids, she is one of our board members, our secretary. And so she puts us in every conversation, makes sure we're a part of things, because obviously being Beer City USA is a huge marketing point for them as well, to get other people into the hotels and stuff, and fill up the city. Another part of that, I'd say, is this past year and this year, I've been working on, I'm an executive producer, and the Beer City Brewers Guild is a producer of a documentary that's being made about the history and the future of Beer City USA. And we're really proud of that. And so we're looking into media that, there's a chance that maybe that could be picked up by Netflix or Hulu or something. And suddenly you're advertising and doing things in a way, and there's tons of filming of our event on the Calder Plaza, but you're advertising in a way that maybe you didn't have access to before, and getting brand recognition out there in a way that some of the brewers have never had access to before. So that gives value within itself, and that's what we're looking to do to really ensure that we have the bodies there to make it a successful event, and we're giving them the best value we can.
So last question about marketing the event. We talked about the younger drinkers a little while ago. They're not spending as much time on Facebook like we do sometimes. So how are you reaching them? Are there any special channels you've seen success with that you want to shout out, or how are you trying to attract those 21 to 30-year-olds who may not have been to a beer fest before, but you might want to get them there?
Yeah, so the low-hanging fruit for me is trying to go to the places that they do go. Some of the local establishments in Grand Rapids, because not only is the beer industry very camaraderie, but a lot of the local organizations, Barfly and some of the other organizations, Hopcat and things like that, where the young people do go, they're very receptive to helping us to promote and put things out there so that it is canvassed and people are seeing it.
Awesome. Eric, anything else you'd like to add with regard to strategies for getting people to come to Beer Fest in the current state of things?
Let's get this podcast or video out there so as many people can see it as possible, and maybe we get some butts and seats.
Love it. So let's kind of go down the outline. I'd love to hear some of the specific areas that the Beer City Brewers Guild and others we need to focus to generate more events in their area. You've talked about some examples, but where should we truly be focusing right now?
Go ahead, Eric. I've talked enough.
Okay, so ask the question again, focusing on more festivals, or?
Yeah, what specific areas does the Beer City Brewers Guild and others need to focus to generate more interest in their events?
I think we've got a really good start on the Brewers on the Calder, or we're having a name change this year. Either Beer City Beer Festival, or we're working on a little bit of a name change to kind of up our game for that festival downtown on Calder Plaza. And we've also kicked around the idea in the Beer City Brewers Guild of perhaps pulling a few more permits and doing a couple other guild festivals within the city. Each entity, I think, can pull 12 special permits for beer festivals. So we pull one, and we are actively talking about pursuing the possibility of maybe expanding that and having a couple more beer festivals in communities around Grand Rapids, and just try to raise awareness of the Beer City Brewers Guild and Grand Rapids breweries and specifically, and just get the name out there and get some more beer appreciation built up within the craft beer aficionados.
Yeah, to add to what Eric said, it really comes down to two things for me, and that's making unique event concepts and engaging guest experiences.
No, I love both those things. Like looking in the crystal ball of Beer Fest into let's say a year from now, then 5 years from now, what are some of the things you expect, and what are some of the things you would like to do as event producers?
Like in addition to what we're doing?
Yeah.
You're saying?
And how are you going to continue to innovate?
I think like we've talked before, making it more of an experience and making it not just a beer festival, but an entertainment experience. And then, hopefully in a couple of years, number one, the beer dollars loosen up a little bit and people want to get out a bit more. And, the generational thing, the current drinkers that are entering the market now don't want to drink what the previous generation or previous batch of drinkers drank. So they're all going to be looking for their own individuality and niche beverages to consume. So just making sure that we have a good variety of options for them to choose from. When we go to the first couple of beer festivals that we went to, it's like, okay, we want to showcase our mainstays. So we're bringing, our brown ale, our blonde ale, our IPA. And beer festivals, typically, the typical participant in a beer festival is not looking for your mainstays. They're looking for something they've never heard of. They're looking for something that's out there, wild and wacky. So for a while it was, double-digit ABVs and barrel-aged fill in the blank. So,
and now we see success with things like we have a cucumber lager that we never expected it during the summer beer festival to just catch fire. But it's just awesome to see things like that happen. We can barely move the beer in the pub. You take it to a beer fest and it's gone. Yeah. Our red wine Treyway is another one of those. You do a fortified wine cask, barrel-aged beer that has a dry finish like a red wine. And during the winter, it's higher ABV, and the ladies just love it. So I think that sort of evolving in those ways is really important too. Yeah.
Well, awesome. For everyone listening right now, what's one thing you both believe they should do right now?
Support the local craft brewery.
Yeah, and diversify, not just in like what you're providing at your event, but one thing I've noticed in the Beer City USA documentary is that when you look at the history of brewing in America and even here in Grand Rapids, it's a lot of very white German immigrants, right? I think as we become more of a melting pot and a diverse nation, and we have culturally, we have all these things sort of coming up, it's important to, bring diversity into our brewing culture, which Grand Rapids has done a great job at. We have owners from almost every region of the world now. And I think that experience and that perspective only makes the culture of brewing in America stronger because you're adding the values of all these other cultures. And I really think that identifying that and being able to, appeal to a wider range of people ultimately is going to give you the success that you're looking for.
Eric, any final words?
I agree with that.
Okay. So if anyone's interested in connecting more with the Beer City Brewers Guild and just kind of picking your brain or just sharing ideas, how can they contact you both?
They can email me at beercitychamp@gmail.com for any needs. I'm always happy to geek out about beer or talk tap handles or, beer festivals, anything. So feel free to reach me there.
Well, awesome. Jeremiah and Eric, I appreciate you both coming on here today, sharing all your insight and what you're seeing and strategies people can use to be more successful with their beer fest. It's been a long time since I've been to Grand Rapids, so hopefully I make it back up that way before too long.
Please do, and let us know when you're coming through.
Absolutely. See you both soon. Cheers.
Right. Cheers, guys. Thanks, everyone.